Picture this. It's Monday morning. The alarm goes off. You open your eyes, and instead of feeling rested, you feel heavy. Not the normal, 5 more minutes kind of heavy. Something deeper, like there's a pile of bricks sitting on your chest, like there's no fuel left. Not even enough to face the idea of going back there. And this is where most people misdiagnose the problem. They say, "I've gotten lazy. I'm just weak. Everyone else seems fine. Maybe I'm the one who can't handle it." But what if the problem isn't any of those things? What if you're not lazy? What if you're exhausted? And not just the kind of exhausted you feel after a long week, but something way deeper than that. You've been living and working in an environment that never really lets your nervous system recover. It just keeps giving and giving, without ever fully coming back home. That distinction matters more than you might think. Because as long as you're calling exhaustion laziness, you'll keep fighting the wrong battle. You'll keep trying to push harder, toughen up, feel less, when what your body has actually been trying to tell you the whole time is something much simpler. I don't belong here. Laziness isn't a lack of motivation, it's a signal. Today, we're unpacking one of the biggest pain points for highly sensitive people. Why one job can drain your very last bit of energy, while another can fill you back up. And how do you know the difference? Not just in theory, in real life, in a practical way, by understanding how your mind actually works. But before we dive in, show your support, leave a like, and subscribe. Your support makes a huge difference and helps keep this channel alive. Here's the uncomfortable question. What if your constant fatigue isn't a discipline problem, but a loud internal signal that you've been betraying your own nature for way too long? And if that's true, how do you fix it? How do you get your energy back? And what do you do next? Growing up, we're told a lot of things about work. Work is just work. Don't look for meaning in it. Go where the money is. Stick it out. You'll adjust. And honestly, for some people that works. They can compartmentalize, clock in, clock out, leave it all at the door. But there are people for whom work never feels like just work, because they are a lot more sensitive. They feel too much. The atmosphere, the tension no one's naming, the emotional undercurrent in a room, the things people mean but aren't saying. And when someone like that ends up in the wrong place, they don't just get tired, they start to dim and fade completely on the inside. Think about a candle. It can burn for a long time, give light, give warmth, give life. But put that same candle in a sealed container with no air, and it starts to go out. Not because anything is wrong with the candle, not because it's broken, just because that environment makes it impossible to burn. That's what happens to a deeply feeling person in the wrong job. The potential is there, the intelligence is there, the capability is there, but there's no air. And here's the part that's easy to miss. This person isn't exhausted because something is wrong with them. They're exhausted because their internal wiring doesn't match the environment they've been placed in. And there are usually three specific things, without which someone like this starts to fade fast. First, living purpose. They need to understand why they're doing what they're doing, and whose life it actually touches, who they're helping today, how they're making that person's life better, and whether that person will feel it. Second, the feeling that their presence matters, not just that they're filling a seat or closing a ticket, but that because they showed up, there's a real difference in the world. And third, space to recover. And not someday in the future, not on a vacation 6 months from now, but built into the actual rhythm of their life and work. Literally, the ability to take breaks and have moments of complete silence while they're at work. Take away one of those three things, and the pressure starts building. Take away all three, and you get someone who still shows up, still does the work, still smiles in meetings, but is quietly going hollow inside. Because instead of living inside a purpose, they've been reduced to a function, repeating tasks that drain them dry without giving anything meaningful back. That's exactly what happened to Elizabeth. For 8 years, she worked in a stable, well-respected job, good salary, predictable schedule. Everything looked right on paper. But every evening she came home, not just tired, but wrung out, like something had been extracted from her all day. And for a long time, she assumed the problem was her. Maybe I'm just weaker than everyone else. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I just can't handle real life the way adults are supposed to. But it wasn't weakness. Her work was completely cut off from any living human response. Numbers, reports, processes, an endless stream of tasks, and almost no sense that behind any of it was a real person, a real story, a real meaning. For some people, that's completely fine. For Elizabeth, it was slow suffocation. And this is where a lot of people get it wrong. They think, okay, so sensitive people need soft, gentle jobs, something kind, something compassionate, something where their empathy will naturally fit in. But it's more complicated than that. It's not the label of the job that matters. It's the environment, specifically whether that environment lets someone's sensitivity become a tool instead of a liability. Sometimes that looks like direct service. Sometimes it's mentorship or teaching. Sometimes it's creative work. Sometimes it's research. Sometimes it's design. Sometimes it's even tech, if there's a real human problem at the center of it. Alex spent years in sales. He was good at it. The money was there, but he described it perfectly. I felt like I was using my sensitivity against myself every single day. He could feel exactly where someone was uncertain, where they were vulnerable, what would make them say yes. And that ability, which should have been a gift, is what made the work so heavy. On the outside, he was successful. On the inside, he was going to war with his own values every morning. When he moved into psychology, the work didn't get easier, but something disappeared, the internal resistance. For the first time in years, he didn't want to escape from people at the end of the day, because connection had stopped being a burden. It had become the point. It had become something worth coming back for. And that's the real turning point here. Sensitive people don't burn out from human contact itself. They burn out from human contact that has no honesty in it. The same thing happens in creative work too. Alice spent years making polished, technically solid corporate content, professional, clean, totally lifeless. Then she started a small personal channel, just talking about things she'd actually been through and figured out for herself. No team, no budget, no guarantees. The first few months, nothing. Then people started showing up. Then more of them. And it wasn't because of some algorithm. It was because she stopped trying to produce content and started speaking from a real place. People don't connect with perfect. They connect with what feels real. But here's the paradox almost no one talks about. Even the right kind of work can break you if the system around it is dead. Victoria became a doctor because she genuinely wanted to help people. But after several years in a system stretched way too thin, 15 minutes per patient, mountains of paperwork, non-stop pressure, she stopped feeling like a doctor. She started feeling like a cog in a machine. She hadn't stopped being empathetic. The system had just stopped leaving any room for empathy. And this may be the most important idea in the whole video. It's not just who you are at work, it's the kind of system you're doing that work in. The exact same profession. In one place, it slowly kills you. In another, it puts you back together. So what actually drains someone like this? Meaninglessness. When you can't see the connection between what you do and who it actually helps. When your work just disappears into a void and you never even find out if it mattered. Toxic environments. Cold, tense, political spaces. The kind with constant undercurrents of stress and things no one ever says out loud. No room for mistakes. No real sense of team. No environment where it feels safe to be human, to learn, or to get things wrong. A sensitive person doesn't leave that at the office. They carry it home, in their body, in their mind, in their sleep. Not being heard. People like this tend to notice exactly where things are breaking, where someone is struggling, where something could be better and what could be improved. But if their voice keeps getting ignored, they go quiet. And once they go quiet, the dimming really begins. No recovery, open offices, constant notifications, other people's conversations cutting into your concentration, other people's emotions getting into your system. That's not a small thing. For a sensitive nervous system, that's daily overload. Now the other side, what actually fills someone like this? Visible results, the clear, specific sense that a real person's situation changed because of what you did. Autonomy, being trusted not just with the task, but with how you approach it. An honest team, not perfect, just safe. A place where you can say what's actually true and still be okay. And an environment where your sensitivity is treated as a professional asset, not a personal problem. And this is where so many people underestimate themselves. They say, I'm just good at listening. I just notice when someone's uncomfortable. I just pick up on the mood in a room. I just explain things calmly. But the market pays, often very well, for exactly those things, just under different names: emotional intelligence, user research, client success, facilitation, mediation, coaching, in-depth interviewing, soft sales, and trust-based communication. These aren't necessarily jobs meant only for empaths, but they are the kinds of work where empathy is most needed, most valuable, and most alive. John once walked into a job interview, and instead of giving some polished standard answer, he said this: "I'm good at understanding what people actually mean, even when they can't quite articulate it themselves." That one sentence opened the door to UX research. What he'd spent years brushing off as just a personality quirk turned out to be something people would actually pay for. So, what do you do with that? First, don't blow up your life in a panic. Not every crisis means you need to quit tomorrow. Before anything else, get specific about what's actually draining you. Is it the whole field, the role itself, the culture, the setup, the management, the lack of meaning? Because those all call for very different responses. Second, start small experiments. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Not new life starting Monday. Not once I save enough, then I'll begin. Just 1 hour a week doing something that leaves you feeling alive instead of empty. For some people, that's one-on-one conversations. For some, it's writing. For some, it's helping someone make sense of a complicated situation. For others, it's teaching, or volunteering, or research, or support. Richard worked as an engineer, but in his spare time, he answered questions in professional forums. He explained things, helped people, supported them. Then someone asked him to lead a webinar, then training sessions, then consulting. He didn't try to reinvent himself overnight. He just kept moving toward what gave him more energy. Third, stop searching for the perfect profession and start searching for the right environment. Sometimes you don't need to change everything. Sometimes you change the company, the setup, the team, and the same profession you were ready to quit starts to feel completely different. And if you feel genuinely lost right now, here are 2 questions worth sitting with. After what kind of work do I feel pleasantly tired instead of empty? And what has actually been filling me lately? What has actually been giving me energy this week, this month, even today? Because the right work wears you out too, but it's a different kind of tired. After the right work, you might be physically spent, but something inside you is still alive. After the wrong work, it feels like someone turned the light off inside you. And one last thing, for someone who feels deeply, the right work isn't just a paycheck. It's the place where they stop feeling split in two, between the version of themselves that survives and the version they really are. When someone spends too long working in the wrong environment, they don't just lose energy, they slowly lose touch with who they are. They get quieter, harder, emptier, less alive. And sometimes they start to believe they were always this way, but they weren't. Most of the time, they didn't break at all. They just went too long without air. So maybe you don't need to get tougher. Maybe you don't need to care less. Maybe you don't need to grind down your sensitivity until you fit inside someone else's system. Maybe what you actually need is something much simpler. Stop treating your true nature as the problem. Start treating it like a compass. Because the right work for someone like you isn't the place where you suffer less. It's the place where you stop pretending, where your ability to feel, to notice, to understand, to connect stops being the thing that holds you back and becomes the thing you're known for. And you won't recognize it because of a job title. You won't recognize it because someone else approves of it. You'll recognize it by one very simple feeling. You can finally breathe again. Thanks for watching. If this helped, even a bit, please give it a thumbs up. One simple like tells the algorithm to show this video to 10 more people who might need to hear it today. And don't forget to subscribe to watch our next episodes, where we dive deep into handling burnout, facing your own shadows, and understanding where and why you feel stuck. Until next time, stay calm, stay curious, and stay connected to your inner peace.